Yo, everybody! Tyler and Stephanie here. We're going to talk. This is part two, and this is the first video, but this is part two of our interview series that we're doing. She's writing a book called The Daughter of He. And yeah, we're working together on it. So, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm clearly, and I'm also the daughter in The Daughter of He. And okay, so let's get started.
And I think what we can do too is it's up to you. I'm not gonna really look over there. We'll just talk, you know?
No, I think that's a good idea because the fact that if I look that way, I'm already have the tendency to just look at me, and I'm like, no, look at the camera.
You don't want to look at me.
All right, so
so start because we were just talking. So start where we were with, you said Stephanie Delusional.
Yes.
Okay.
So, you know, there's many people that they have all these amazing ideas. They have revolutionary ideas that can make humanity evolve higher in consciousness and higher in knowledge. Now, wisdom and knowledge are two separate things. But let's get to the fact that we all have unique ideas. We're all different. However, many don't express their true selves out of fear of rejection, fear of ridicule, and fear of the opinions of others. Because we live in a society that we base our self-worth in what others think of us. It is never what we think of ourselves, very seldom. And in order for you to get into your genuine self and destroy the ego's insecurity, you need to be secure about who you are as a person. And for me, the only way that happened was hitting complete rock bottom and then realizing that I have now nothing to lose because of the fact that all my life, because of my mind, because of my interest, because of my appearance, I've always been ridiculed, gossiped about. A lot of the times when I was younger, I used to act more in my heart and desires that I had free of rejection, free of not caring what others thought of me. And once I started to truly be myself, people are afraid of that. They fear that. When they see somebody that is finally themselves, they want to get there. And the way of bringing that person down is by ridiculing them, making fun of them. And for me, it got to the point where a lot of rejection from society led me to suicidal attempts. And I knew that I had so much to offer the world in terms of my unique mind and my ideas, but it came to a point that they almost were dead forever because of the type of perception that others had of me. And, you know, the world works as a mirror where what I think of others is what I think of myself. That's why I'm able to recognize it in other people. And that's a blessing if you want to take it in terms of spiritual growth, that if somebody doesn't think well about you and they tell you a fault that they see, you should take that as something to work on. Or it can just be completely misleading where you just say, for example, somebody were to tell me, oh, Stephanie, you're worthless, for example. That's what they think of themselves. However, if I'm secure and I know my self-worth, I am not going to get affected by that. And instead, I would have compassion for them because I see that they're suffering.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, if you're hurt, they want to hurt that back. And for so long, when I first was coming out of this complete depletion of the soul, and I was finally coming out, and I numbed myself with weed 24/7 to not feel anything. I also numbed my mind because I was afraid of my mind. I was afraid of the type of ideas that I held. And these ideas led with math and physics on how existence began. Now, that's an interest that not many people hold, but I always pursued that because I found that if we know where we come from, then we know where we're going. But most importantly, we realize our infinite potential and capabilities because of, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to say on that, like, it kind of comes back a little bit to, if you remember when I asked you about, like, death, like, where do you think we go after we die? And I brought up Alan Watts about how he kind of, what he says is it's like, what was it like before you were born? That's what it's going to be like after you die. And, you know, that's his opinion. I don't think that's really based off of any, like, mathematical, just knowing
It's
about
wisdom.
it's wisdom. Yeah. So is that something you can, do you think that's true, or is it maybe a little different before and after?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because in the book that I gifted you just now of Dan Brown's Origin, they talk about that.
Oh, great.
So this is why.
You know how to give good gifts.
Yes. So this is why I said, I was like, the Da Vinci Code, I need to build, I'm a teacher, so I know how to build my students up. And I know how to introduce them ideas, and they need those ideas first before they get to the next step, because then they see that new information with new eyes. Okay, so in there, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a Paul Gauguin painting called "Who Are We? Where Do We Come From? And Where Are We Going?"
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece that it resides, I believe, in the Metropolitan Museum, and it is perhaps it's long, very short in this height. And I analyzed this painting extensively when I was an art history student at New York University. And what I found beautiful about it is that in my analysis, and then afterwards, I discovered that we're going exactly where we came from. So it's a loop. So it's kind of like a loop of past and present and future all being one of the same. Now, Alan Watts said that you can go, you know, when you go to death, it's like when you were born. However, I mean, at least in my perspective and my terms, I was able to go to that place of after death through a meditation.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us more about that.
Yes, and so, you know, this is very interesting because two things. I got very connected. I was already connected to the spiritual world since I was very young. I just never actually explored those abilities. And instead, they saw this as a mental illness. And I was completely drowned in medications up to the point where I would be prescribed 8 pills per day. And I did the count. It was like something insane, like 1,000 pills per year. Okay. And I remember just looking at the pill box of like morning, afternoon, you know, noon. And this was the reason why I dropped out of architecture school, was because I was so doped up in, I call them drugs because they literally are. And Adderall, I couldn't, Adderall, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, sleeping medication. I mean, I needed a pill for everything, you know? They completely deplete you.
Well, I know, and Adderall can't sleep, so then you need the sleep thing.
And then exactly, and then you get anxiety from the Adderall, so you take the anti-anxiety, and then you're completely depressed that your body is just going through all these emotions that you're taking antidepressants. Now, if antidepressants work, why is it that people never get off them?
Yeah,
because they don't work. It's a business, exactly. And I was a victim of Big Pharma. Not in this upcoming publication. I do talk a little bit about that in my memoirs of the entire time that I was doped up, how my mind changed, how I lost a lot of, the word psychic is so dampened and tainted that I don't like to use it, but just having extrasensory perception, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I completely lost all my abilities. I completely lost who I was. I completely lost my self-worth because I was led to believe that A, I needed drugs in order to be part of society and function in society. And then B, I was completely left with no worth because I felt worthless, you know?
Yeah.
So that in itself led to suicide attempts. If you, I don't know if I showed you this, but here is the scratch of one of them where I cut myself. It's still there. This one didn't heal, and I'm glad it didn't because it reminds me of.
A good reminder.
It's a reminder of the strength that you carry inside if you start to love yourself and accept yourself for who you are, and who you are is who you choose to become. Only
Yeah.
you can dictate your worth.
Absolutely.
You know? And then I also have from when I was almost gang raped and killed, which that story I have to send to you.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful manuscript. I say beautiful because in this time of near death, and I already did a near death experience with an overdose of Adderall.
I was literally going to ask you about that. I'm glad you want to. Tell us a little about that, because that's pretty wild, like the heart rate and just the experience.
Yeah. So I was in architecture school, and right now I would be able to do it how I am right now. And at the time, I was just not equipped emotionally. I was too doped up, and regardless, I was on top of my class.
Yeah.
And even then, so I would get ridiculed in high school from, let's say, the girls because of the way that I looked. And that in itself is, I will say that the prettiest girls are the ones that are the most insecure, because that's a conversation for another time. But it basically deals with guys are just there to use you, and girls gossip about you.
Uh-huh.
So in the end, you're left depleted and worthless as well.
For sure, yeah.
So when I had the Adderall overdose, it got to the point where I was taking, this was with Vyvanse, by the way. Vyvanse is also amphetamines, and it's the new Adderall. It's like, it's more potent.
It's like,
And I will say, I mean, I had my wild ride, but the type of information that I was able to absorb, because that's what these amphetamines do.
Yeah.
And they're giving this to kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely insane. So like 4 hours worth of information, you can absorb it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And my mind would come to the point where I would just be out of here into the area where I obtained so much information about the origin of existence, the origin of physical matter, how matter is created, where existence even comes from, you know, and whether that's another talk, whether I exist, whether you exist, right?
Which is a really good talk.
Yeah, so I came into the hospital with 271 beats per minute in my heart.
Yeah.
I've always been an athlete, so they were like, this is a miracle that your heart didn't explode. And what was really messed up, and this always happens, or it happened, was that, and with other people still going on, I got to the emergency room, and I already had I have a PhD in withdrawing because I've gone and I've experienced that so many times that I had to get out of it, and at the same time, also after rehab, I had to, you know, get out of it again when I relapsed in the beginning of recovery. And I know that you have to stay very calm, because if you get into anxiety, you can literally die. You can literally kill yourself. If you're overdosing and you get anxiety, that panic attack is going to make your lungs, you know, like congested. Your entire respiratory system is going to shut down, and that's the end of it, right? So I go in the most monochrome tone of voice to the lady in the registration of the emergency room, you know, the one in the front desk, and I go, I am overdosing. I'm about to have a heart attack. And she's like, oh, just sit over there. We'll assist you later. Yeah. I faked fainting.
Wow.
Yes,
And this is when your heart was that high? Like,
it hadn't gone yet.
Not yet. Okay, it was about to. Yeah,
so
you kind of knew it was
I fainted. But here's the crazy thing when I fainted, was the fact that somehow my mind shut down. That was the point where it was like, I'm done. And in that instance, then she started freaking out. And I'm like, I'm here overdosing. I'm about to die. You know, it was just a horrendous experience. And she didn't even care. She's like, oh, just sit over there. We'll be right with you. Yeah. When somebody comes in and says, I'm overdosing and I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, don't you think that they should go directly into getting an assistance?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so
I
as
can
well.
totally relate just real quick, because as you know, I've had panic attacks. I think I told you about.
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't tell you?
No.
I've had it's now been about like 6 months since I've had one, but I went through like a 3 to 6 month period where I was having them like weekly. And I didn't know why. Like, it was just
Were you
happening.
smoking weed?
No, I was, from what they tell me, it was just that I was like overworking. is what they say, and that I wasn't. I'm like very much an extremist. So like
you're like me, black and white.
Yeah. So like what I'll do is when I'm focused on a target with work, I'll totally forget about my nutrition, my health, like everything else. I'm just like work. So now luckily I figured that out, and I do have more of a balance. Sometimes I think I still overextend and work a little bit. But so they kept happening. But the first one, my first one I had, I didn't know it was a panic attack. I thought it was a heart attack.
And it's horrible. I've had it many times because your mind's melting, like your limbs,
it's
like
the worst.
Yeah.
So I literally called my mom to tell her that I thought I was dying. So I did. I really did. Like, I called her and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. I want you to know.
I love you.
Want you to know how I feel about you. Like you a lot. I love you. And then I literally called a Lyft or like an Uber, like a Lyft.
Yeah.
And I get in the car and I'm like, listen, I need you to take me to the emergency room immediately. Do whatever it takes. Get me there. I'm having a heart attack. And the guy was like scared shitless. But he got me there. He was blowing red lights. It was so crazy. And I was like, I'll pay the ticket. Like, just get us there.
Yeah.
So luckily, no ticket somehow. And it was right here at Mount Sinai. So like,
don't ever go to Mercy Hospital. They have anything but mercy on you.
No? Yeah, not good.
Horrible.
But the same thing as you're saying happened. Like I went up to the front desk, and then I said basically, I think I'm having a heart attack. I need you to like get me in there right now. And then she was like, you can go wait and like sit over there. And I was like, I didn't fake fainting, but I told them like, no, like I'm not okay. And then they didn't take me back right away, but they took me to the side, took my heart rate. And now I'm blank. I think it was like 180 or something. It was 180, so pretty fast, not 270, but it was fast enough where like I was going kind of in and out of consciousness, like I wasn't. And then they took me back and they did and said everything was fine, but it was a panic attack. But what I think is interesting is that, like what you're saying, is anxiety. So if I did have anxiety there, but if I let anxiety go to another level, could that have actually really hurt me? Like, could anxiety taken me to a level of...
So it feels like you're dying.
Yeah.
However, if there's some drugs involved, the chances, I don't know the statistics,
yeah,
but I don't think that you can die from a panic attack.
Okay,
I think that drugs have to be involved.
So drugs and then anxiety on top of it.
Exactly. Because especially amphetamines, so I was prescribed at that time 30 milligrams. Okay.
Yeah, which is
I was under 290 milligrams.
Yeah, I think I was prescribed 40 a day for a while.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and I would take half of the 20, like the little orange ones. I would take 10 milligrams, and that would for the whole day I'd be set.
Yeah, you would be like fired up, right?
40 is like so. Sorry, guys.
So 290.
That is an insane, unfathomable.
Well, here's the thing. I was under a lot of other prescription medications.
And other stuff too, right?
Well, weed. Yeah.
Oh, weed and that. But you weren't taking the like anxiety or like antidepressants at this time?
Oh my God. I've had such a journey with prescription medications.
You may have been.
That I think I was under antidepressants, and I think it was antidepressants I was at under this point, and under what they call an antipsychotic. Okay. And that came from me telling, the psychiatrist there, they just love giving those prescriptions, right? And my God, and it was always this new one that when I checked it out online, it was like $1,000 per month a bottle. And I'm like, how much are you getting from that? And she's like, refills, 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how much are you making? You know? And there's no cure, because the cure is in outside. The outside world doesn't exist. It does, but it's an illusion. Okay? What really exists is our souls.
So just to clarify, because I think this is crazy, so the doctor does get a cut when...
Absolutely.
Yeah, see, that's like...
that's messed up.
What is that called? That like shouldn't be allowed. I forget the name. There's actually a name for that in business where it's like you shouldn't... It's like conflict of interest, pretty much. Right? Because if the doctor's there to help you, then they shouldn't be incentivized to sell. They should their only incentive should be that you get better. It shouldn't be to make money off of.
Here's the thing. for people that really truly want to make you better, they're not going to change who you are as a person uniquely. They're not there to change you with drugs that they're banking from. Psychiatrists are not there to help you. They're there to help themselves. And the American Board of Psychiatry, I've done a lot of research because this is part of not so much of The Daughter of He, but an upcoming book that deals a lot with government corruption and how we're all controlled and how our emotions are suppressed and our emotions are manipulated by, I don't want to say the elite, but the global financial corporations and government that and religion, that they can only exist through fear, shame, guilt, and depression.
We talked about that. Yeah.
So that and the big pharma and all of that goes into that upcoming publication after The Daughter of He. But what happens when, by the way, 70% of Americans right now are under prescription medications.
70.
So, people are not talking about this.
Yeah. What defines that, just so I understand?
Okay, so number one, the most prescribed is antidepressants.
Really?
And number two is opiates. We have an opiate epidemic.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of them that goes indirectly correlated to depression, which is diabetes prescription medication. And that goes with the emotion, literally, when they say eating your emotions.
Yeah.
So when you start not loving yourself, not taking care of your body, engaging in foods that make you feel good just temporarily, but then you look in the mirror and you're depressed on the effects of that. And that's all a system, because then afterwards in diabetes, how much money are they banking from, American being obese, like an obese country?
Yeah.
So there's some that are antidepressants and some that are more towards diabetic type of medication. But all in all, it's all correlated to emotions, because what we feed our bodies is very important. And people don't realize that what you put in is the type of fuel that you're running under.
Yeah.
And your mind is the muscle that consumes the most energy. So that's what you're feeding your mind. And your mind is what operates your reality, And so let me just get back. We got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah. Well, we do that.
Yeah, we always do that. So we take you on a wild ride. Always. But just to end with Big Pharma, because I really don't want to get too much into that, just because it's not part of this interview, but it's something that is very important, is the fact that people don't realize that the American Board of Psychiatry is a nonprofit organization. And even though they make billions and billions a year, they don't pay taxes. And not only that, but the CEO, which I'm not going to get into the name of him, he invests in nuclear research. So just leaving it off right there.
Yeah.
Just to something to think about.
You have to tune in for another one to hear more about that.
Yeah, and the type of research that I have is astronomical. It opened up my eyes at how grateful I am that miraculously I got out of all of that.
Yeah.
That I was a victim of Big Pharma, and the reason that they do that is because the economy doesn't profit if we're happy. The economy doesn't operate if we're already realizing that we're perfect and complete. We wouldn't be looking for something externally to satisfy us.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be looking for materialism, for the watch, the car, the apartment. I mean, it's okay to have these things. I'm not saying that materialism is all bad. It's just the intent of it. Whether you use materialism as a way to feed a void that you created in yourself, and you use materialism to make you happy, is completely different from being happy and then liking materialism that is beautiful. Okay? There's two very, very different things. When you use materialism for happiness and you don't love yourself and feel complete, is very different than when you are complete and you have materialism.
Yeah.
You have it, you don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's not an identification of who you are.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so we'll leave it there, but I wanted to get back to when I overdosed.
Yeah.
So I went in, as soon as I fainted, of course, everybody then rushed. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I needed. I know that I'm about to die, but I'm trying to play it cool because if I freak out, my throat's going to shut off.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I collapsed, doctors came, they picked me up. For some reason, that's a good question because I never thought about it that way, but that's something that is still debatable, is the fact that I don't know why when I fainted, my heartbeat just started going at 271 beats per minute.
Yes.
I don't understand. That was the peak of it. All I vaguely remember, I do remember a lot, but
it's so high. 271 is so high.
They were like, it's a miracle that you're still here.
Yeah.
And it happened for a couple of reasons. And the number one is that I've always been an avid athlete. I played tennis growing up, cross country, track and field. I worked out a lot. So I had a very strong heart to start off. And number two is the experience that happened of this near-death experience, that it left me. I was already connected to the metaphysical realm or the spiritual realm since I was younger, but that was numbed, and that was looked at as that's not normal. She shouldn't be, for example, it wasn't voices telling me like, go kill yourself, go do this, go do that. It was more voices of another dimension, that they were there to give me ideas on how to evolve humanity through consciousness and through knowledge. So I would get a lot of ideas of the creation of existence, of the beginning of time. And then I was so stupid because of the fact, I shouldn't say the word stupid because that's a very strong word, but I searched relentlessly to find the origin of time, and there is no origin.
And that spent your whole life searching for that.
And it just came to the moment where I was disappointed because the ego was like, I wanted to be the person to patent my formulas and prove that time does have a beginning. And then all of a sudden I'm getting this information that time is an illusion and also time is infinite.
Yes.
Yeah. So
how long did you spend on that?
Many years.
Since
it started, my curiosity. I mean, I studied calculus. I was very fortunate to go to a program at Harvard when I was 16, and this was still when I was in high school. And I was able to study calculus with an amazing German professor who has your last name, Wagner.
Yes.
Yeah, so German, and so he. It was incredible. It was incredible because that's when I always had a passion for math, but I never understood why I had that passion until much later on.
Tell us why, because most people, especially calculus, I honestly hated calculus.
Well, it was for a couple of things. It first started off as to feed my insecurity. So if I was able to solve like hard formulas and complex formulas and solve knowledge or problems that many people can't, it made me feel better about the bullying that I had.
Yeah.
So it made me have a sense of self-worth that somehow I was able to, achieve things that others weren't able to. So at least it got to.
Makes sense. It's just, it still takes a lot of like willpower, determination to even. I just remember at what age? 16?
Yeah, 16. Yeah.
Yeah. See, 16, I looked at a calculus equation and then I looked the other way. That's what I did real quick.
Yeah. Well.
Because they.
They are, however. Here's the thing, many teachers, they don't teach the why. They don't teach mathematics as a language.
Yeah, Wait, and if you mentioned it, I apologize, but so tell us the why. Because
the why
that could
math?
because that could maybe change a lot of perspectives, right? Because if I knew the why, maybe I would never say I hate calculus again, Because the calculus I remember was this big textbook where they began to add letters into math. And I didn't like that. I was like,
yeah. Yesterday, a student, I
it's like,
was,
this is
you know,
confusing.
she asked me, and she was like, I loved math until the alphabet got involved. Like I
Yes,
learned
that's a
ABC,
good,
not 3A, 3B, 3C.
Now you're fucking.
Exactly. But once I explained to her the why to math, they catch it on like that.
Okay.
Because and it's also it interests them. So for example, when it came to calculus and physics, what really captivated, I guess if you want to call it, not only my mind but my soul, because that purpose of mine already was there since the beginning of birth, since before birth.
Yeah.
We choose who we're born into. Our family is the school that we need in order for us to evolve and have those tools in order so that you can complete your life purpose. However, many people don't complete their life purpose because they are programmed by capitalism and financial corporations to think that their purpose is to make money. And basically they spend all this time in the office working, endless jobs, and they never find their true purpose because they identify their purpose with materialism. So for me, I wanted to become an architect was for that reason, for the glory, the fame of me going to everybody that ridiculed me and be like, you see that building up there? I did that,
Yeah.
And then I found out, I quit school because I was miserable, and I was also under too many prescription medications to even function, but it was meant to happen because I chose this life of, of growing up, extremely, extremely comfortable. I talk about this in my book. I grew up with basically like a legit princess in this world, where I woken up by the chef of the house. What do you want for breakfast? My water was warmed up. I didn't even dress myself until I was like 8 years old. I had chauffeurs, and
the good life.
Yeah, if you want to call it the good life.
Yeah.
But I grew up without love, and my love was objects, because if I cried, here are Barbies. If and my parents were always working, so I never grew up. My mother didn't raise me, and I'm still working on that relationship because I don't think that she helped me as a baby. She was always like, oh, here, this is the nanny, she takes care. And in the beginning, bonding with your parents, your mother, that's very important.
Yeah.
And, I'm still working on that, but as I changed, she changed as well, So it was amazing. But, I grew up in this incredible world, if you want to call it incredible, because it was very comfortable, But if you don't have love from your family, it's exactly. And then I go through, complete poverty at 16 when my father passed away. It was during the stock market crash of 2007. My dad died a couple months before the bubble burst, left over 20 properties in my mother's name. He had built a multi-million-dollar empire, and it all went to scrambles with those properties left in my mother's name. She was a housewife. She didn't know what she was doing. And there was a point where she had to pay like $100,000 in taxes for a few houses. And I told her, don't do it. I was 14 years old. And I was like, don't do it because this is going to pop. And at 14, I already held that information, which I don't even know where it came from.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So something told me, and I'm like, Mom, don't pay it. Don't do that, And so everything collapsed. There was, $1 million about left in the bank account. Completely blew it off. She I don't want to get too much into my family story, and because I get into it in a little bit in my book, but I like to not talk too much about my parents and my brother because that's their lives,
For sure, I understand.
But I got turned into complete poverty by the time that I was 16. And by the time that I was 18, I was homeless. I didn't have, I was sleeping in NYU library. I was,
you talk about that in the book too.
Yeah, I slept in a lot of friends' places, and I lived from a suitcase, basically.
Yeah.
And this is all coming from somebody that grew up, with everything. By the time that I was 19, I was in government help. I was in food stamps. And it came to a point where they asked me, Steph, why are you releasing this in your book? That's embarrassing. And I'm like, no, it's not. You know why? Because of the fact that if I don't show my true self or who I am, and I own to my weakness and my strengths, it doesn't make me who I am, you know? And we're only ashamed of our past if we are not secure of ourselves and we don't love ourselves.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I'm not the only one that went through this, you know? And it came to a point where I went through drug addiction. You know, I went through several suicide attempts, you know, and all of this I chose, you know, before I was born, because in order to complete my purpose, which is to evolve ideas and knowledge, but most importantly, help others reach their full potential, you know, I had to get out of there myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because in rehab, you know, I had a psychologist, and I'm like, I'm so grateful that you're here and you're trying to help us. But were you an addict? And she was like, no. But I have many people in my family that were addicts, and that's probably why she became a psychologist, to help, you know, to help others. And I turned to her and I go, you know, how can you help me if you haven't gone through what I've gone through? And that's when I realized, and it started clicking, and I'm like, if I get out of this, then this is my purpose, because I'm there to guide others, because I went through that. You know, I know how you feel. I know your thoughts. I know what you're about to do. I know, you know, what you shouldn't be doing and what you should do.
Yeah.
So that within itself, you know, it enabled me to not only grow as a person, but fulfill my true purpose, which was to spread ideas. And how was I going to do that? Through writing books. You know. And
so before, what I'd love to ask you, explain kind of like the Daughter of He, like your upcoming book. Explain like
absolutely,
like explain like what it, maybe there's 3 parts, like what it is, right? Because I think for a lot of people, I think the title is pretty intriguing, but it doesn't say enough that you know like what it is, right? So like what it is, some of the and stories that are involved, and then like, you know, it's going to teach people things as well, right? So in some ways, so I think
absolutely. So before I get into that, can you please pass me my water bottle? I need to take a sip of that.
Absolutely.
Going into my bag.
Really?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
I love that, because I thought you were going to say, which actually water is profound, actually. An important thing on this earth.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. So the Daughter of He. So there were several things that went into this first publication, because I first just wanted, my biggest passion, I mean, it's up there with helping people. But for me, it is my biggest passion, is going into the creation of existence and physics and math. That for me, for some reason, I was willing to die with Adderall to get that information. Yeah. So if it was
must mean something.
It must mean something. So that was what I wanted my first publication to be about. And that the reason why I later learned on why it is that why I was so infatuated and I craved for that knowledge, and I would spend days on end, 4 hours straight. 4 days straight without sleeping, just doing notes, doing formulas, doing this. And my brother would come in and say, Stephanie, like, this isn't normal. Like, and I'm like, are you trying to say that other physicists and scientists that they're crazy? And he looks at me, he's like, yeah. And I'm like, then leave me alone. This is normal for my field.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so
I love the way you like spun that on. Yeah. Like, well, this is normal.
Yeah,
so that obviously, like, the stories of that.
I'm just going back to that vision, and I thought it was hilarious. And so that's my true passion, because for me, I absolutely love to prove existence, because of the fact that if we prove where we come from, as I said earlier, then with that information within itself, we hold infinite potential to realize that we can create our own reality. And how? It's because, and I get into this in my book, we live in a computer simulation.
Yes.
We live in that, we're right now in that simulation. I can explain it, but unless you actually experience it to the point where your consciousness is elevated, and you can get there through meditation and raising your vibration, you actually feel the immersion. You actually feel the simulation.
I feel like I feel it sometimes.
Yeah, you
That's
feel it
why
sometimes?
I was telling you, I think before we even hit record, where it's like, I still am not 100. I don't know. I'm gonna say, but I feel I'm leaning more towards the simulation. And so tell me if this has any relevance. But one of the things that I start to notice, and maybe this is not relevant, right? But when I look around, you see all the little dots, like the little you know what I'm talking, like it's almost like the little
the static.
Static
of the frequency of the radio.
Yeah. Like I see that often. And I think to myself, I'm like, that's kind of weird. You know, like it's like just, and I see it. I don't know. So that to me makes it kind of feel simulation-y to me.
Well, it's technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's static, as you see in the television. By the way, the television was invented by the Nazis. I don't know if you knew this.
I didn't know.
Yeah, for massive mind control, basically. Because under the, I don't know the name. I need to study more into this because it's so relevant to everything that I'm in.
Yeah.
There's types of waves that your mind goes under. It's like theta waves, I think.
Okay.
Where your mind goes into the same state when you were age 0 to 7, when your mind was a sponge. And in this state, it's a hypnosis type of state where you're still awake, where they can control your mind.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it's called, television programming. Vision programming.
Whoa. Never, ever heard that before.
So it's very important. And by the way, video games, that's something to get into in itself. Whatever you're playing in that video game, that's a simulation right there. That's actually happening in another dimension.
Yeah.
And with that affects whatever's happening in all the other dimensions, it affects this dimension as well. So that's something to get into much later on.
Yeah.
But let me just get into television programming. So it's very important that whatever it is that you're watching, that it's relevant. For example, I watch Cosmos 1,000 times because of the fact that the more that information is repeated, the more that I'm able to apply my knowledge into that.
Yeah.
I love watching history films. Or, by the way, history's so tainted. If the news is bad, imagine how history is.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So
well, and you know that even I'm sure you've heard of that game or something where it's like whispered down the lane. I think you know.
Of course.
Right. So it's like 10 people in it. So if that can get that screwed up, imagine what just even 50, 100 years can do. You know?
Exactly.
So
let's go back to your static.
Yeah.
So this, we are right now inside this computer simulation, okay? And whenever you see that static, and you're somebody that you're very high frequency, you're somebody that you're very high energy, okay? So when you tend to get into, remember we were talking in the previous podcast, if you want to check it out, it's you should be putting the link, I would suggest you put the link to your podcast. So that was, and it was spontaneous. We weren't even supposed to even do a podcast, but what we were talking about was so interesting that Tyler was like, boom, record. And it starts off in the middle of like a mathematical formula that I'm like, you know what, that's gonna actually put people to kind of sleep in the beginning. So we should have started right down the line. When at 4 minutes, that's when it really starts getting interesting. Which that was, that's when when I relapsed and I started smoking weed again, and everything that happened.
The weed part did capture.
But the beginning is also very interesting. If you truly pay attention to it, it's very important. But the static. But I was actually going to go into something else, but let's do the static first.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, so you're like, yeah, this is me. Hold on, I need to. Okay, so what that means is that when you operate in a certain frequency, okay, so when you're in shame and guilt, it's are the lowest.
Yeah.
So your frequency is actually very, very high, the logarithm, the wavelength, okay?
Yeah.
the higher that you get in the spectrum, going towards love, joy, enlightenment, your frequency is going to be more calm, but at the same time, it's going to be resonating more towards, and this is just got channeled actually.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I never thought of it this way.
Yeah.
Do you know flat line when you're dead?
Yeah.
When you are in enlightenment, you're closer to that flat line. Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa! And that is everything. How do you know that we're not dead right now? You know, and I know that's a thought that you probably had before.
Absolutely. Well,
I'll get into that in another time.
Yeah, that's because we should dive deep into that. Yeah.
It's both. We are dead and alive at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's but I mean,
and this is Alan Watts stuff.
Right? Share it to me.
Yeah.
But I will go ahead and say that I don't want to say that this is the truth, you know, this is what I've discovered. And it comes from a place of humbleness that it means, I don't know if it's true or not. These are just my ideas.
Yeah.
You know, I can't prove it for sure. I can't even prove my own existence. I mean, you can to a certain extent. Through a lot of the solipsism is an amazing term. We'll get into that another time. But wow, I just completely lost my thought right there. So we're dead and alive at the same time. But when you are going more towards the enlightenment type of frequency, that means that you're tuning up the frequency like a radio, you know? So you go from like 88.9 is a certain frequency, and then you go to like 110, you know?
Yeah.
You need to tune it up to that. So when you see that static, it's usually that you're going up or down in frequency. But usually it's, if it's, for example, if you just encounter somebody that is operating under anger, under fear, under anxiety, under pride, those are lower vibrations.
Yeah.
So if you don't cleanse yourself, once your energy, if you don't cleanse that after you're done talking to them, then you tend to go a little bit towards their wrong.
Got it.
All right. And if you're with somebody that is very high energy, then you're also elevated up to that point.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen the static before as well. I see it all the time. And
okay, so it's normal.
You're not the only one. That happens to people that I'm pretty sure that you're very close. If you haven't already looked at it, you're close to enlightenment. So that's something out of my intuition. Because you already operate under love, gratitude, and joy and bliss. And those are very, very close to enlightenment. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's...
And we talk about that in the other podcast.
Yeah, that really goes into the hot snap of consciousness. Yeah. But let's get... and I've seen before wavelengths, okay? Going straight into physical matter. And I've seen matter in binary code.
Yeah.
And you know that's a bit intense, and that's something to leave for another conversation. But let me just get into the daughter of He. Of why the title, and so that was a little detour.
Yeah. so yeah, tell us why the title, a little bit about it, and then I know there's a lot of things we said next time, and next time we'll talk about the binary code. And some other.
We need to make a note of this.
I know.
Binary code, okay. All right. And then, big pharma and other stuff as well. Government controlled. Yeah, they don't want you to be happy for a reason.
Yeah.
Money. Okay,
a lot to still talk.
Yeah, a lot still to talk about. And, but let's go to the daughter of He. So when I have this passion with proving where we come from, is because there's a difference between the computer generator and the computer simulation. The generator is what operates our physical reality. That's why they say thoughts manifest things. But many times, so for example, in The Secret, why do thoughts manifest things? Like, where's the math in that? Where's the physics in that?
Yeah.
So all that information, I try to go into the mathematical side of it. How is it that thoughts are manifested? Well, because they are taken from the computer generator, not the simulation, it's from the computer generator in binary code, and it gets translated into physical matter. And the converter of binary code, which is computer language, 1 0 1 0, on off, life, death, infinity. Anyways, that should be like a little rhyme for like kindergarten, you know?
I was just thinking, I was like, somebody should turn that into like a beat, or like something musical should happen.
Yeah, so you get that information, okay, in binary code, and your mind is a catalyst. It is a converter of binary code, and then it projects it out, that binary code, into physical matter. Okay, so that is why they say that is how physical matter is formed. However, your emotions, which are your thoughts, is how you experience that simulation, that manifested simulation.
Got it.
Did that make more sense? That was a very hard and very advanced, complex concept to explain.
So in the Daughter of He, you tell, like, you kind of teach us this, but you do it through multiple stories of your life. Is that accurate?
Very accurate, correct. So when I first wrote that, and I just wanted to release these ideas, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this information, because of the fact that if I put that out there, there's other people that are going to spin off from that, and then we can collectively evolve, you know, our ideas. So my brother, I sent him a little manuscript of it, and he read it. He's like, Stephanie, dumb this down by 1,000%. The normal person is not going to understand this. Like, I don't even understand like 2%. I understood like 2 words of the entire paragraph. And my brother is very wise. He's very knowledgeable and very intelligent. And so he's like, Stephanie, this is not going to sell. This is going to sell perhaps to people that are in theoretical physics or math, or, you know, professors or students of math that are interested in that, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, but you don't understand. People need to know about this. And my brother's like, yeah, but that's not going to sell.
Yeah.
I had another thing hidden, which was my story.
Yes.
Which is very abnormal. Very abnormal story.
To say the least.
Yeah, he's had a few extras in my manuscript, and oh my God, poor my ex-boyfriends, because my career is going to be based, well, I don't want to say my whole career, but my books are most of them are going to be based off our relationship. They're never named, you know, they always have different, and they're not like, oh, it's a different name, like pen name. Like, no, like, for example, in this book, it was about my recent relationship with Mr. He.
Yeah.
Okay? In the upcoming one after that, it's the Casanova Prince. Okay? And then it always, but I don't bash them. That's not what I do. Yeah. What I do is that I take their weak points or points that I see that they're struggling with, and talk about it on how to evolve themselves through destroying that. Okay, so it's more as a guide of, see, I've always seen the good side to my romantic relationships. I've seen the bad sides of it too, the dark sides, but I only see it as unresolved issues. That's not who they truly are. So it's always a little bit of both, you know. It's always about the good person and the bad person inside. So always I go in, and that's the thing. I cannot try to fix somebody in the name of love if they don't want to change. You know? Absolutely. Because you want to see the person who you're in a romantic relationship with operating at their fullest potential. You want to see them happy. And for me, I'm somebody that I'm able to get into, because of my intuition and my experience and knowledge, I'm able to pinpoint exactly where it is that they need to change and why it's not letting them operate at their highest selves. Okay? And with the Daughter of He, it was a blessing, and I'm not going to say it was a curse. Nothing is a curse. But it felt that way because of the fact that I will first start off with saying, when you reach enlightenment, and whoa, that was weird how you just lit up.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? You just said enlightenment. Enlightenment?
And then
it did work. It's like, and you literally did enlightenment, and then a beam of light came out.
Okay. Is that the beautiful thing is that we are human and we make mistakes. Okay? So with the Daughter of He, it was something that was committed out of passion, out of lust, out of realizing later on after this relationship happened, which was only 31 days. And it was the weirdest relationship that I've ever had in my life. Weirdest relationship, because he was like my best friend. He was a father of a student, you know, it was completely against
some drama.
No, the drama in this is it's absolutely insane. So, oh my God. So anyways, so it shows us that even if we reach the enlightenment, we might have taken a peek at it, but the only way that we can actually get there is through experience. And so we go back down, and then we pick ourselves back up until we keep doing that cycle until we finally destroy all our negative emotions, and thoughts that turn into our negative behavioral patterns. Okay, so this was an Oedipus Rex type of relationship, and I've had 2 of them that are like that. All right, and so when this happened, I was already at a point where I thought I reached enlightenment, and then I fell in love with a married man. Okay, and oh my God, it was, you know, I'm still processing that, because it made me question a lot what marriage meant in society, in terms of the metaphysical realm, because marriage is done as a way. When did marriage start? You know, it made me question that. And why is it that it started? Why did it become a social norm, you know? And it led me to discover, and this is something, a lot of my ideas, they come from a place of non-programming. So when you're operating from your genuine soul, and you're operating from the capacity of, I want to say, enlightened information, and there's no social connotations involved into that. So for example, what does marriage mean in the metaphysical world? Well, in the metaphysical world, we don't own anybody. You know, we don't, but I will get into how it also, there's a little twist to that of why I believe that. We don't own anybody. I have a theory that we don't even own our own souls, because our souls are part of a bigger source that is the combination of all our souls put together into this giant soul, and that is what I call is the soul of the creator. Okay, excuse me. And so when I started questioning, you know, for example, I was completely conflicted because I also had a very good relationship with the wife. So it was very, very hard, and she knew exactly what was going on the entire time, you know, and she decided to look the other way. Their marriage was already, you know, like in the verge of divorce. She had already, you know, tried to, I don't want to talk too much about people's, it's in the book.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of it, I will say that when I met him, he was suicidal and he was under antidepressants.
Yeah.
Albeit being, he is a very, very successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he is a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. And together with his wife, they both have an empire. Okay. And that within itself, it goes to show others that the story, I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, because this story is what people believe is happiness. When you have so much money, when you have, you know, for example, he had, yeah, you can say that he had the freedom to do whatever he wanted. When the wife found out that things were getting, I don't want to say serious between us, but their marriage was just breaking apart. And I told him, like, am I the cause of this? And he's like, no, because if you wouldn't have come into my life, I wouldn't open up my eyes and realize that my wife is a narcissist. Yeah. You know? And in the end, I was like, oh my God, the entire time, this is all part of that story. Yeah. And he was 29 years older than me. And how is it that we first fell in love? It was because his passion, he has 4 master's degrees. One of them is in information technology. And it got to the point where I walk into his office one day. He's like, I'm going to liquidate my company. I'm moving to San Francisco, and I am going to start a virtual reality and a software programming firm. And I was like, I am so happy for you.
Yeah.
This is your passion. And he pursued finance because he felt that money was happiness. Yeah. And he was very similar to me, where he got bullied growing up because he was abnormally intelligent and always into quantum mechanics, into physics. So I saw a lot of myself in him. And so because he never though worked through that ridicule and that rejection, and he based his identity off his money.
Yeah.
So, you know, and, you know, when things started to get serious, his wife just one day didn't show up to work, took the passport of my student and her son. You know, he had various passports. I find out later on that she asked him, because he goes up to me during our lesson. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but my mom asked me today if I wanted to go away on our trip with her, just the two of us. And I'm just there, and I'm like, oh my God.
Okay, so wait, stop there. That's a good place to stop.
All right.
Yeah, and then one thing too, yeah, we're gonna keep you hanging because like that's a real good place. Like, I want to know what happens next. And, like, so we'll stop there and we'll talk about it in the next one.
Awesome.
But I also think we should talk about intuition in the next one, because I think that you do have like maybe a more natural ability to tap into it than most. But regardless, I'm curious of like how you do tap into it. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think. And it's almost like that gut feeling type of thing that we were talking about before too, because I just think a lot of people ignore it. And I think they ignore it, but they ignore it, they're unaware of it. And then also, how do you even become aware of it? And that could be really helpful for people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We should pick back up next time.
Yeah, awesome.
It was fun. Thank you.
It was amazing, Tyler. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, till next time.
See you guys. And I'll see you in a second. There we go.